This is Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles from Safe Harbor Retirement Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Cory provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles.
Welcome to another episode here of Financially Fit Radio. I'm Cory Sickles with Safe Harbor Retirement Group and Wealth Advisors. If you have any questions about today's show, just feel free to reach out to us at 614-760-0670, or you can always visit our website at safeharboroh.com. And while you're on our website, feel free to watch previous episodes of our radio show. You can also subscribe on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Amazon Music, as well as Spotify. Again, you can also watch this Financially Fit Radio on our YouTube channel. Just type in Safe Harbor Retirement Group. You can also watch other types of videos on financial topics. Today, we're going to talk about something that we call really the silent killer, and that's inflation, and really what kind of impact that has on your overall retirement plan today, but more especially, I think, when you are retired. But before we dive into that subject, let me introduce to you my co-host this week and every week, and that's Tony Shore. Tony, how are you today?
I'm great, Cory. Great to be here. Looking forward to the show today. I've had a crazy busy week. In fact, the last 4 days, 5 actually, I was in Florida with my family. My wife's mom took her and her brother and sister's families, all of us, all the kids, the significant others, to Disney World. So we went to Universal and Disney World, and I got to see Rise of the Resistance, which I think is the best ride I've ever been on at any theme park ever. That's really cool. If you Star Wars Galaxy Edge, I'm kind of a geek, so I like that part of it. And then the kids went off and rode rides and things, but it was good. I had fun. How about you? You recently had a big experience too.
I did, but before, I have one question for you though.
Sure.
So did you make your lightsaber?
I built a lightsaber. I should have brought it with to show our YouTube viewers because it is pretty impressive. But my son and I built our own lightsaber. It's very realistic. The thing weighs, it's solid. It's metal. It's heavy. It's legit. It's the most authentic thing. It looks like the ones in the movies, and it works like the ones in the movies, except it doesn't actually cut things, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's probably a good thing.
Probably a really good thing. Actually, that's fortunate. Yes. That's a good thing. But we had a lot of fun, and those are very cool. A nice souvenir from the trip. So
yeah. So yeah, you're right. So you did that, and I actually went the other way. I went out to Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah. What did you do out there?
I went out there for a couple days, but actually we went out there for my wife's birthday, and we actually went to the Sphere and got to see the U2 show. So I know you did that earlier in the year or late last year.
Yep.
And I will say this, whether you like U2 or not, the experience of the Sphere and all the video and what it actually does is unbelievable.
Yeah, it is unbelievable. There's no way to describe it. You have to experience it. That's so cool. You guys got to go to that. And I know your wife loved that Melissa loved that for her birthday, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. Yeah, we had a good time. It was a short visit, kind of just go out there, that's really all we did was that. So yeah, it was a great time. Now you kind of, get back to that reality. It was nice and 60 out there, come home, and, we have snow on the ground. It's going to be a little warmer here this week, but, yeah. So, kind of a little bit of reality there. But,
yeah. Reality is set in, I bet, for you, because this is a busy time of year for you. And there's a lot going on, and we're going to talk about that today. What are we talking about today, Cory?
Well, we're going to talk really about inflation and what kind of impact that's going to really have on your retirement.
Sure.
In general. I think, believe me, it's been in the news, right, for the last 2-3 years, really since COVID's actually taking place. The Fed's trying to be able to get that down, right? But, I mean, we experienced our high over the last couple of years. Our high was a little over 8% inflation. The Fed's trying to get about, down to 2. Right now, we're kind of around that 3% range. But I do think retirees, especially, I think everybody has, but retirees, especially who actually are on budgets, I think they've come to realize that life got a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
Over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I don't think, from my standpoint, Tony, we always sit down and develop plans for clients, income plans for retirement, kind of show them, hey, here's where you are today. Here's, when you do retire, this is what I want to be able to make. But what a lot of people forget about is, my income needs to go up every year.
Yeah.
To keep up with inflation, and we're putting together plans that are, 20 or 25 or 30 years when we start putting together income plans. And all that means to you is if you want to make $50,000 today and you retire today, that's going to have to be over $75,000 15 years from now.
Wow.
And if you're trying to live off that 50,000 and expect that's all you need to have in income going forward, you're going to find out that A, that's not true, and B, if you don't plan for inflation, Tony, the most important part of all this is you're now going to have a difficult time of possibly running out of money.
Yeah. Yeah, this is where leaving your money and your savings under the mattress or just sitting in a bank account or burying it in the backyard,
right?
That doesn't work, right? You have to you have to have some growth on it, otherwise you'll never keep up with inflation.
That's exactly right. I'll just use a quick example here, right? So everybody that's taken Social Security this year got a 3.2% increase off of your Social Security benefit, right? However, your Medicare Part B went from 164-ish to 175-ish, 75. That's actually about a 5% increase. So even though that you're making a little bit more money from Social Security, you're still lost a little bit of buying power just off of your Medicare. And that's not including if you really look at probably what's gone up more than anything, groceries have gone through groceries, and you have to eat.
Yeah.
It's not like that's something you can't avoid.
It's not an option. Yeah.
Right.
Groceries and healthcare really are not optional. And those have gone up exponentially, even more than the government standard inflation,
That's correct. So when we build a lot of income plans for clients, most cases we're using a 2.5% annual increase on your income to keep up with inflation. But then we also have like a Social Security report, Tony, that we run for clients. And we actually have Medicare and the Medicare, the Part B as well as a supplemental cost. We have that going up about 5% a year. So from a healthcare perspective, it's probably going to outpace inflation. And at some point in time, let's face it, everyone's going to have more healthcare. You might not in your 60s and 70s, but at some point in time, you're going to spend more money on healthcare than you do traveling and doing some of the other things that you like to do today. So there's going to be a shift. We know it's, we've talked in the past, how much does long-term care cost? Today it's $10,000 plus. If you're in an Alzheimer's or dementia type of facility, and 20 years from now, that's going to be $20,000 plus a month. So we know all these costs are going to keep going up, but you have to be able to plan for it. And if you don't, you're going to have a huge issue later on in life.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to have a plan in place and plan for inflation, or you're right. It's really going to derail your retirement plans. I think that makes perfect sense. And our listeners out there, don't do it. Don't make a plan or go into retirement without factoring in inflation, because it has a huge impact on retirement. Because in retirement, no matter how much or how little money you have, you're still on a fixed income. It's not like you're earning more money. You have only a set amount you can access. And so you really have to be careful with these things, right?
Yeah, and of course, when we start talking about the foundation of building an income plan, Tony, you, what's the first thing you have to talk about?
Social Security.
That's exactly right. You got to
Yeah.
talk about Social Security. And that's why it's so important to be able to make sure that you're maximizing those benefits to, keep up with inflation long term as well. To give you an example, so if you actually file at the age of 62ish, and let's just say your full retirement age is somewhere between 66 and 67, which it can be depending on when you were born. But if if you take it at 62, you're taking a 30% reduction of what you would actually get at your full retirement benefits. Now, obviously, if you delay even past your full retirement age, you can make up to 120% of what your full benefit is. Now, let's just say, for example, at 62, it's only $1,000. I'm just throwing hypotheticals out here, Tony. But if you get a 3.2% increase, would you rather get that on $1,000, Tony, or $2,000 because you waited?
Yeah, obviously the
Right.
$2,000. And so for a lot of people then filing early is not the right move, but it depends on your situation.
Everyone's situation is different.
Right.
And, obviously it depends on the income you need, the assets you have, and health it can be a big part of that as well. But what you really need to be able to look at, though, is the impact that's going to have later on in life. When you start getting those annual increases based off of, from the cost of living increases, that's going to have a big impact. And let's face it, I know everyone wants, the number one thing that I always hear, well, I put money into this the entire, all these years. I want to make sure I get it back because I don't know when my day I'm going to pass. Right. Well, you also want to make sure the day you do pass, you have money in your bank account too. If we all knew the day we were going to pass, that'd be awesome. But that's not the way reality works. We don't know when that day is going to pass. And you have to prepare as if you're, unless you have some serious health issues, you have to be able to prepare for 20, 30 years from now that you or your spouse is going to be living. And you want to make sure that you're maximizing that, not having issues with thinking about running out of money. And the best way to be able to do that is make sure that before you trigger your Social Security benefits, you can sit down with us, review a report to make sure you're making the right decision for you and your family as well.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And obviously, Social Security has to be factored in because that's the basis. That's a known amount. Depending on when you file, then you'll know what you're going to get there. And then you have to calculate everything else. But you're right. I mean, cost of living helps Social Security combat inflation. It doesn't completely cover inflation usually.
Right.
Usually, the actual cost of living adjustments aren't in keeping with actual inflation costs, right? Those groceries went up exponentially, and so is healthcare. I mean, when my healthcare insurance premiums went up 20% in 1 year, Cory, I didn't see a 20% increase in the Medicare or Social Security payments that year. Not that I'm filing yet, but for people who were filing, they didn't have to pay my independent, but Medicare costs went up. So it's interesting. It doesn't always cover things like, because hearing aid costs have gone up and vision, things Medicare doesn't cover is what I'm trying to say. So you really have to watch these things. And again, the old put the money under the mattress. Like my grandfather said, oh, I don't trust the stock market. Don't trust banks. I remember having actually an uncle that thought that way. And it's just like, well, he had no growth. So,
well, that kind of leads into our next topic, Tony. That's a good one, is growth, right?
Right.
So what type of impact can this have on your long-term investments too, right? The one thing you obviously you want to make sure that you're always investing based upon your risk level. But you also don't want to be like too risky or too conservative, right? I mean, you don't want to be all of a sudden where your majority of your money's in stocks and all of a sudden you're retired and the market drops 30% and you lose 30% of your overall net worth that you have invested in stocks. Now, all of a sudden you're thinking, do I have to go back to work? Am I going to outlive my money? You have all kinds of questions when that happens. But it can also go the reverse, Tony. If you're too conservative, then you're not going to be able to keep up with inflation. So you got to have a right balance of, that's why it's so important to work with an advisor that's probably a fiduciary. You definitely want to work with a fiduciary, but they're going to be able to invest for you based upon your risk tolerance. You got to have some money in stocks. I know a lot of people don't like that, to hear that idea in some cases, but long term, based off history, the stock market has produced. And that's where you're going to get some of your long term growth to be able to keep up with inflation for years down the line. So it's the right balance. Everybody's going to be different based upon your own risk tolerance, but you don't want to have everything just so conservative that you're not being able to keep up with inflation,
or so risky that you're going to lose too much of it. So you've got to have
exactly right.
the balances, and everybody's balance is going to look different, right? Everybody's situation. I know you've done so many of these over the years and helped so many people plan out their retirement income that you look at all these factors and you're used to it. So that's a good thing.
That's correct.
You know what to look for. You don't have the same. You're not going to make emotional decisions. You're going to help people avoid doing that, which people like to. Oh, I want the Social Security now, or I want it all in this, or I want it all in company stock, or I want it all in the bank. It just doesn't work that way, right?
It doesn't work that way. You need to be diverse. There's nothing wrong with having some money in the bank. You just don't want all of it,
right?
Or the majority of it, right?
Right.
So there's nothing wrong with having it in the bank. I mean, right now interest rates are good.
Yeah.
So you're making a little bit of money on there, but at some point in time, the Fed will start lowering interest rates.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And then what are you going to do? So my whole point of it is there's nothing wrong with having some in banks or some in CDs, or, we also have, the one thing to probably look at too is if you want some type of guaranteed, you can do what we call MIGAs, or, fixed. They're fixed annuities you can get them for 2, 3, 4, 5 years for a certain guaranteed amount. The fixed indexed annuities that we've talked about for growth and for, being able to get guaranteed income in retirement. Right now, these products right now are the best that I've seen in the last 13 years because of where interest rates have gone. My point of that is at some point in time when interest rates go the other way, then what you're going to see is some of these products that are available to clients today are not going to be as good as they were here at the beginning of 2024, the second half of 2023. So I highly would recommend, this is a great time to sit down with an advisor like us, where we can sit down and review your risk tolerance to make sure you're diversified in a lot of different types of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Now is the time to get a review done. In fact, let's talk before we move on about how our listeners can get that review from you and your staff there at Safe Harbor. It's easy. You can help them answer questions and get a second opinion on where they're at, right?
Yeah, for our listeners out there and our viewers, you can give us a call at 614-760-0670. Or again, you can always visit our website at safeharboroh.com. Remember, all of our meetings are complimentary. There's no financial obligation. We're here to help and guide you to make sure that you're going to have the best retirement that you possibly can. And, if you have a financial plan, we can be that second set of eyes and provide a second opinion. And if you don't have one, we'll put one in place for you. Again, our phone number is 614-760-0670. And again, our website is safeharboroh.com.
All right. Well, great show so far. And again, listeners, that's 614-760-0670. Give Cory a call, 614-760-0670, and set up that consultation. Now, we're talking about understanding and managing inflation's impact on retirement. These are essential tips for financial security. It's part of our Essential Tips for Financial Security series, and it is so important. Inflation had reared its ugly head in 2022. We all had just about as much as we could take, but it does go up every year, even though they say they want to bring it down to 2%. That language is a little deceiving because inflation, the inflation it's still going up, just not as much, right?
That's correct. I'm gonna tell you a little story I did the other day, Tony. So when we actually come in and we do income plans, obviously clients want to be able to maximize what they can maximize in retirement.
Yeah.
But my job also is to make sure that I find the balance of here's what I'm recommending that you actually would make per year, right? It's going to last you for the next 30 years. And one of the things I do is I can actually, use inflation numbers. But the one thing that I did the other day, just to kind of show them the impact of inflation, Tony, was based upon the income they were actually making. If I actually lowered the inflation rate from 2.5% to 2.25%, only a quarter of a percent, 30 years later, that added over $400,000 to their overall portfolio.
That's crazy.
And that's what they thought.
Yeah, I bet.
So then I actually took away another 0.5%, and it added another $400,000 onto it. Now, the reason why that's important, and believe me, a lot of people come in and go, you know what, I want to spend every dime I have. The ideal thing is I'd run out of money the last day I live.
Yeah.
Right?
You want to bounce that last check.
I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
No one knows that when that day is going to happen.
No.
Right?
You can't do that.
So the problem is, as I tell a client, when I build a plan, I'm never going to have you go to zero. Can't do it.
Right.
Right? You don't know what's going to happen in the future. Right. Or one of you going to go into a long-term care facility or some type of health issue. You don't know that. So you need to be able to plan for that. We talked about on last week's show, we talked about enhanced planning. You just need to make sure everything's set up. We don't know when our day is going to come, but make sure it goes the right way. That money goes to where you want it to do if something unexpectedly does happen.
Yeah.
And the whole point of all this is inflation is a silent killer. And here's one of probably some of the most difficult conversations I have with people. And that is this, Tony. I want to retire January 1st of 2025. Right? They come in, I build them the plan. I say, you know what? Here's what it looks like if you delay 1 or 2 years. And they're amazed on actually how much more income they could potentially get.
Yep.
Or B, how much money is going to be left if they're trying to create a legacy for their kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the whole point of it is believe me, everybody's going to want to retire.
Yeah.
And when you get in those 60s, I mean, you're clamoring to retire, right?
Right.
A lot of people are. But sometimes you really have to look at what's going to put you in the best situation to have the best retirement that you can. And if that actually means maybe working a year or two longer, or potentially instead of taking money out of your retirement savings, maybe you do file for Social Security, but maybe you go out and get a part-time job so you don't have to take money out of your retirement savings. There's little things that you can do where you can semi-retire, but the one thing you always have to remember are things are going to cost more. If you're expecting to retire and that's all you're ever going to make is the same amount of money when you retire, you're going to be living in poverty 15, 20, 25 years from now.
Yeah. Of course. That's what happens over time. And that's the erosion of our money because of inflation. And that's why this show and this topic is so critical to people out there and to their plans, their financial plans, whether it's, and we're mainly talking about retirement, but it's just your finances in general. I mean, for my wife and I, inflation can erode what we have over time. I mean, we've seen it, we've been married 30 years, and over the last 30 years, we just thought, wow, between housing and cars and insurance and bills, everything's gone up exponentially. And now I get it why my parents, I thought, oh, I'm never going to be like my grandparents complaining about the cost of everything.
Right.
Why do they think this is basically what stuff costs? What's the big deal? When we're young, we get it. Now, in mid to late 50s, it starts hitting you. Oh, wow. Yeah, things really have gone up. And this really does affect me, right?
Yeah. And believe me, on today's show, I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer here, right?
Sure.
Really, what I want to make sure the listeners and the viewers have here or think about is, hey, inflation's there. We can deal with it. But the thing that you have to do is you have to have a plan. Don't go into it blindsided. Work with an advisor like us. We can sit down, put together that income plan for you to make sure that you can retire the day you want to retire. Or we're going to point out that maybe you do have to delay a year or two to make retirement work for you.
Right.
But don't go into retirement blindsided thinking that everything is just going to be okay, because you have to have tools that we can actually show you so you can be educated upon, the day you do retire, that is the last day that you do retire.
Yeah. Well, I think this has been a great topic and a great show, but unfortunately, Cory, we're out of time. Let our listeners know one more time how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, our phone number here is 614-760-0670. Again, you can always visit us online at safeharboroh.com. Remember, all meetings are complimentary, no financial obligation. We're here to help, make sure that you have the best retirement that you can. Again, if you don't have a financial plan, let's put one in place for you. And if you do have one, hey, we can be that second set of eyes and provide you a second opinion. So just give us a call at 614-760-0670 or visit us online at safeharboroh.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Cory. And listeners, thanks for tuning in. That does it for today's episode of Financially Fit Radio.
Thank you for listening to Financially Fit Radio. Don't pay too much for taxes or retire without a sound income plan. For more information, contact Cory Sickles at Safe Harbor Retirement Group. Call 614-760-0670 or visit their website at financiallyfitoh.com.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.